Hey, I have a little speed paint today, a little demo on a still life, going back to basics, working with some basic shapes to do a nice little still life watercolor. It's a plate full of avocados in the sunshine with some shade around it. Should be a fun one. Should be able to do it pretty quick. Be a good exercise for you to build your skills, practice your 3 stages and 4 states of watercolor, and it's all good. So let's get started. All right, I've already sketched this up and it's ready for the initial blocking. And this first one's going to be real quick. Actually, I need to switch over and grab a big brush. I'm just going to lay down a big soft color of light, like raw umber right there. Maybe just a smidge of raw sienna. I'm working with my pans. And this is a great example of work with a huge brush on your initial pass and let some fun things happen. There's not a lot of real hot highlights in this, so I need to knock down the entire white of this board. So we'll just drop some water in here and see where it goes. It's okay, we just want to get that tonal range and establish that real quick. And then I've got to let this dry. It's got to dry for a few minutes before I come in after the shadow on the shadow side. This side's in shadow, this side's the brighter side. And we'll work around the plate and drop in the shadow and make it a stronger contrast between the two shapes. So we're going to just let it dry for a second. All right, things are drying a little bit. I can come in now and I'm just going to do a little lifting in the shape of the avocado. It's still pretty damp, so I can pull that tone back out of that shape. Mainly because I'm going to put a little more of a bold color on the interior of that. So I'm just lifting that out. And this is just plain water. There we go. And I might even do a little bit of that on the plate. Right around on that rim, that edge. It's kind of fun. Here and over here. All right, that's kind of fun. And a couple of spots over here on this scroll work. I'm just going to make some irregular marks, just some highlights on that decorative rim around the plate. Okay, let me get a little more lifted right there. Perfect. All right, that's looking fun. All right. Good. All right. And I think we have enough that we can start going after a little bit of the shadow. Okay. The shadow is going to come in this direction. This is the edge of the shadow, another shadow coming in. It's darker on this top and it kind of transitions to a lighter color. So we'll just drop in some of that color first and foremost right up here. I'm going to throw it right along this edge. Okay, and then I'm just going to feather it out just a little bit. Feather it out. Come around. color in there. Again, I'll probably need to pick out that highlight a little more. I had to wait for that initial color to dry just so I'd have a little bit sharper edge for this shadow work right there. All right, and I'm going to get a little more darker. I'm going to get a little more phthalo. We'll throw that back up in here a little more. Still fairly dark as it comes around. All right, and grab it, load it up a little bit more. It's a thinner mixture down here. Comes right along this edge, right like that. And then right up against the underneath side. Get a little more saturation color right up in here. And let that go right next to the lighter portion of the plate. Cool. And unload my brush a little bit, thin it out. I want to get this shadow now. And it's a lighter and thinner. Come right down there along the plate. There we go. All right, that looks like fun. I might throw just a smidge of warmer color. Let's get this right there. Just a bit right in here. Just needs a bit more. It's probably going to create a bloom, so I'm going to mop it up a little bit. It was too thin. I need a thicker mixture. And you'll develop that sensitivity as you want to keep the colors saturated, but you don't want to create blooms unless you want them. They are kind of handy. They do look good and can look good. Okay. All right, that's really all the fussing I'm going to do at the background. Let that dry. I'm going to come around, grab my brush again. My 3/4 inch brush, my flat. I'm just going to do a little picking right here where I got careless. Kind of pick and push it back out. Push it back out. It's very damp right there. All right, I'm going to have to let that dry. I want a little sharper edge, but it's too wet to do anything with. So we just got to be patient for another couple minutes. And we'll be right back. So I'm sitting here waiting for that background to dry, but I just thought of something that sometimes it's kind of a fun thing to try, and I thought I would give it a try, see if it works for you. And this area right in the field of shadow is still pretty dark and wet. And sometimes if you want to create a little more visual texture in the backgrounds and in fields of color, you can just kind of come in. It's dried long enough. I'm just going to throw a couple of splatters of water in there, and it does some pretty fun things. And you got to wait. It can't be real wet when it does it, or it'll just spread out too much. But this sometimes will definitely do some things that is beneficial to the piece. And as it's dried out here, I could even take and get some of my colors here. Similar color range as what I just laid down, and it's like a Formica tabletop, and I could even come in and start dropping in some of that irregular textures that will be on the surface of the tabletop, both in the lit side and then on the shadow side. So we can have some fun with textures and splatters at this stage. So, all right, that's kind of fun. This is still too wet. Some of you can really see how that color is spreading around, and it's drier over here, so it's staying in place. So, all right, I just wanted to throw that in there. I just thought of it as I was waiting for it to dry, and we'll get started in stage 2 here in just a second. We'll do some more color blocking. Actually, I think I could probably do that right now on the avocado itself. So while everything else is drying, I'll just pop a little of that color. And it's kind of a yellow. I'm going to use some of this yellow ochre. I'm going to get some of my yellows over here. Yellow is one of the colors I don't use a lot of overall. So, and it's going to also, that's kind of an orangish yellow. There we go. Get a little yellower yellow right up there. So we'll mix up a couple puddles of yellow. And then I need kind of a greenish yellow too. Right in here. So, all right, so let's start with this one. It's too thin. There we go. I'm just going to throw in and block in some of that flesh of the avocado right here. Work around that pit. It's the yellowest right in through here. All right. Again, this shouldn't take too long. Just get the shapes right. All right, there's a green. I'm going to just throw a little of that color. We just need some color mixing there. And on this side too. On this side. And throw a little bit of that right in through here. All right. There we go. So we got the avocados blocked. Pretty good. Nice saturated color. Got some nice, those water drops are really drying nicely. The splatters are drying. So I might go ahead and grab, it's not going to hurt anything. If it does move a little bit, I'm going to mix up some of that greenish blue that's in the shadow. I'm going to apply it onto the plate. Get a little more brown there. There we go. All right. Try to keep a similar color. All right, and that shadow, I'm just going to drop in the shadow real quick. Trying to catch an irregular shape, an edge. Actually, we got that shadow coming onto the surface and even up onto the seed, the pit. Throw that right like that. Good. Come on around. Good. All right, and then we'll come up along the plate and come back around to the avocado. All right, cool. That's fun. We'll do the rim of the plate right there. Shadow coming across. All right, and get this shadow coming across the plate. Some darker on that back side, and I'm going to just feather it out on this side. Cool. And I'm going to get this little rim right along the edge of the plate. bleed there, but that's okay. Got bleeds all over the place. It's just a hot mess right now. So it's just dying for the structure and the contrast that we're going to find, so that we've kind of blocked in all the big shapes, and it's drying. It's still wet right in. It's still wet right in through this area, right in through here. Surface of the avocado is still pretty damp as well. So I'm back at that point where I just need to wait for a few minutes and firm up so we can come in and start doing some other things. So I'll be right back. All right, so it has dried again a bit more. It's still a little damp right up here, but I did miss one of the shadows on the plate that I wanted to hit with that color. So I'm going to come right along the edge of the avocado, and it does follow right there where those blooms are. We'll just pull that out and drop in that shadow right there. I'll leave that little peekaboo. And I think we're getting close. I'm going to throw a couple of these shadows right up in here. It's too thin. Hang on. There we go. Right there on that scroll work. I'll just kind of dummy those in. Totally faking it. And there's one right up in here. And faking that as well. And let me soften some of these up just a little bit. You just need to give the appearance of that textural scroll on the surface of the plate. And then I'm going to catch a little bit of the rim right up here. I'm going to follow the outline there. I'm going to bring it on around like that, and right up along here as well. I'm going to be doing some picking along that edge, but I'm just going to soften this out like that. Cool. And very, very thin bit of it over here as well. And I'll feather that out. Okay. This is just really more for surface texture than anything. All right, and we're still waiting for final drying. Oh, it's got a little wet spot right there. I felt it. And I think I could maybe come in. I'm going to get some of the color for the seed. So it's kind of a burnt sienna, mixed a little orange in there. That's about right. And it's going to be saturated right in through here. A lot of color. Okay. Comes around a little bit like that. And then I'm just going to feather it and make it more of a tint on this side so it's not as saturated. Want that down here on the bottom side as well. All right. And I'll throw a little more burnt sienna right in here while it's nice and wet. Get some nice interactions going there. I'm going to grab some of this greenish color and a little bit of that burnt sienna. I'm going to go after this shadow edge right along in here inside the avocado. Maybe a little greener, I think. There we go. All right, so it comes down and then across. Okay, and then it's kind of got a crunchy edge right there, so a little divots coming down along that nice curve. All right, and as that's still damp, I'm going to drop a little blue right up on that side, right in there. Let it mix together. And I see on the surface of the avocado over here in the shadow, I need a little bit of that warmer brown right in that spot right there. And then we'll go after the density in a few minutes. All right, so that's starting to look good. And we are getting dry enough to start working with some darker values and sharpening up the edge work all the way around. And I'm trying to decide where I'm going to start. I think I'll work from the inside out and then get everything kind of going with the avocado, and then I'll work on the plate. The plate's going to have a really nice strong blue painted rim around it too, so it definitely needs some little more structure. And I'm going to grab my number 2. I can't even read it anymore. My nice small 1/4 inch flat. I'm just going to pick that highlight out where that bloom was. Sharpen that up. I'm going to come up here and do the same thing. This is just water. Good. That up there is fine. Might do it right here as well. Let's pull it back to white, just a little closer to white. All right. And now grab my brush again. I'm going to grab that yellowish color, and this avocado kind of has a divot right in here, so I'm going to pop that in. Where it was separated. And just pull that out. It's very angular, so I need to get it to read just right. All right, and then on the back side of the hole, I'm going to throw a little bit. There's some texture, kind of crunchiness going on there. And the same thing over here, a little darker color. This is still a very thin mixture. I'm just trying to get some variation on the surface right there. Cool. Okay. And a little smaller brush. I'll get a little more of a green. That dirty dark green. And I'm going to hit this. Yeah, it's dry. Go ahead and kind of start building out some of the structure right here. So okay, and then I'll feather that out. Come right up along this edge. Feather that out. Okay. All right, and I'm going to intensify this shadow just a little bit right in there. Pull it down, feather it out. Cool. That's looking pretty good. All right, we have some strong, deep darks right there, and I actually need to do that right along this edge. It's still a little wet, so it's going to feather, and that's okay. And where is that wet spot? All right. That's all fairly damp right now. I need to kind of work on another spot. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get some darker color, thicker, darker color. And I am going to come around this plate and we'll start adding some contrast to it. And I'm looking here, I think I need a rich blue. There we go. Need a good thick mixture of the blue. And as it transitions around, it'll go darker. So we're going to see some of that blue right along this edge. Okay. And now I'll switch over and I'll work a way around the rest of it. Okay, I'm going to let this dry again one more time, and then we'll come after it and finish up all the highlights and the last of the detail. All right, going to get back to it again, and still got some damp spots, but it's nothing that will keep me from kind of coming in, and I'm going to just start drawing, working up the textures. So we've got a lot of contrast to work in, catching shadows, adding that structure into it. And now I'm just starting to bounce around, loosen up, push that paint around and let it kind of do its thing, make marks, do some interesting things with it. And we'll just keep going. Textural marks, value marks. I'm going to do some glazing in just a second on the avocado flesh, just to get a little more intense saturation to it. And try to catch that. I'm going to get this back side of this shadow. Alright, feather that. Alright, and let's get some of that green. Alright, so we'll go greener green. There we go. Going to thin it out, and right along the edge of the avocado, it's got a nice kind of a greenish tinge flowing around. So we're going to pop that in there. And we'll feather that out a little bit. Do it over here as well. And loosen up. Some nice greens right back in here. I'm going to over exaggerate that. Same thing back in here. Feather it out. Again, I have more of an orangish color right in there. I want to intensify. More orange on that. There we go. Go back to my green. We'll throw a little bit of the green just right in this area and then feather it. And then I'm going to grab some more of this yellow. There we go. Just going to glaze more color in. Get a little more intense yellow to it. This in there isn't that saturated. I probably oversaturated it from what I'm looking at. So that yellow. Okay. In that little corner. Knock this whole thing back a little darker. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to take some of this blue. I'm going to get a little of that cobalt. Throw a little bit of the blue on this side of the nut. That looks good. Cool. Switching up my brushes, I'm going to pick a little highlight real quick. Come along right up in here. And I'm just going to rediscover that edge. There we go. And I am going to start getting a little inventive now with some colors. And I'm going to throw a little more of a blue right there in this. I think that'll make it look a little better. Maybe a little bit of it right down here. All right, so we are coming along. One moment. All right, so I'm going to let that dry one more time, and then I'm going to really come back and kick it in the butt with some really strong contrast and really start making things pop. Okay, so give me another couple minutes and I'll get started. So we're back. Still got a little wet spot up there on the flesh of the avocado, but I think I can go ahead and I can do a couple more things in the background that I was wanting to do, and that entails a little more phthalo blue. I want to just glaze a little more blue into that. There we go. Phthalo and some ultramarine. I'm just gonna put a nice little punch of blue right in there. I'm not even gonna worry too much about it feathering out. Just a little bit right there. I think it's a nice color and complement to the greens and the yellows, and it'll dry nice. It's a very thin wash. All right, and I think I can come in and I'm going to grab some Payne's Gray, and I'm going to mix up some really dense dark shade, and I'm going to bounce around and pop in the contrast, the final contrast. And textures. So let's make the last little bits of it start to sing. All right, and as everything's drying, I'm going to pop in just some little spots of highlight. We got enough dense tone on this. It should look pretty good. All right, this is starting to come together. I notice when I am painting this small on good paper to boot, it is a challenge to find spots to work while it's drying. So I'm always having to kind of pause and wait for things to dry. With a bigger sheet of paper, you can kind of bounce around to different sections and find a place that that will allow you to do some of the work. Oh, I'm going to fix that right there. There we go. So anyway, there we go. That's a nice little plate of avocados. So hey, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you got any value out of it, give me a like and a subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And I do have a Patreon page that if you do like what I'm doing for this channel, head over to Patreon and join up and sign up for a membership. Help me support this channel and keep me going with this. So I really do appreciate it. So I'll see you in the next tutorial.